And he's like, I've been looking up and seeing what dietitians earn, and they make like 50K as new grads. I think we're in the wrong degree. And when he said that to me, I was like, oh my God, he has a point. Aidan Muir.
Aidan Muir.
Muir. M-U-I-R.
Muir. Like
Muir, yeah.
Muir. Oh, that's good. I'm going to get to it. I'm going to start with the first one. Aidan.
Yeah. Aidan. Easy. Aidan.
Aidan.
Man, you're struggling.
Yeah, I'm really struggling really bad. English is not my first language.
So, like, pretend the I isn't in there and just A-Dan.
Oh, Aidan.
Yeah, easy.
Oh, okay, that was easy. Aidan. I don't know why I heard Aidan the first time. So
yeah,
Aidan.
And for the last name, like Mu.
Yeah.
R. Or Mu, but like Mu R, basically, is how I'd say it. Yeah.
Aidan Muir.
Yeah, spot on. That's perfect.
Oh, awesome. Perfect. Yeah, I do really well with like, when I hear people say or pronounce a certain word, I can kind of like, okay, that's how they said, and then kind of just like mimic it that exact same way, which is why I sound so white.
That's good.
I legit think that's exactly why I sound that way, because like
I
used to watch like Yu-Gi-Oh when I was younger, and I'd have it on like caption, where I would read the caption of like what they were saying, and I would like, I swear to God, I could probably like sound like Yami Yugi, if you know Yu-Gi-Oh. Like,
nah, it's been a while. I don't know.
It's some Japanese bullshit. But anyways, Aidan.
Yep.
What's up? How's it going?
Good. It's going good. Yeah, I've just like settled into a new business premises, I suppose, like working out of a gym and stuff like that as a dietitian. So it's good. Yeah, it's exciting. That's
pretty cool. Most gyms that we have in the United States don't have like a particular dietitian within their gyms, which I've always thought was really weird.
Yeah, I think it's to do with the culture of dietitians and stuff like that. Like, I don't think many dietitians are in this fitness space or anything like that. It's just like for me, because I'm into powerlifting and this is a powerlifting gym, there's probably like 5 dietitians in Australia who powerlift. Yeah. So like it lined up really well. Like there's a reason why they're not in gyms and stuff like that. But like, and I was just training at this gym, been training here for like 2 years, and then it's what I wanted to do. So I just hit up the owner and he's like, yeah, sure. Like we've got a room free. So it's good.
Yeah, that sounded kind of like lined up pretty well too. So tell me a little bit more about yourself growing up, and a little bit more like how you got into the whole like, hey, I want to be a dietitian.
Yeah, so like one of the kind of key variables I think is that like when I was young, I came from a family that didn't have a lot of money, but it was really interesting in that like I didn't know. My parents never made it clear. Like I only found out later when I worked at the same company as my mum when I was like 18, and I saw what she got paid, and then I was like, oh damn, she would have only got paid this like the entire time pretty much. And my dad wasn't working, or he had like an unsuccessful business. So my parents kind of like treated it like every time we couldn't afford stuff, they just like said it was like character building, as in like, it was never like, we can't afford this. It was like, no, we're not getting this for you. I think that's really shaped me to a certain degree. But growing up, I suppose, like I was always into sports. So basketball was probably the biggest one I played, but I played a lot of sports. But I was very, very skinny. Like, so I'm not big now, but I'm 92 kilos at 6 foot tall. And when I was 18, I was 62 kilos. So very skinny as a child. And I think that's also shaped me to a certain degree because I like sports, but there were certain sports, like it's probably not as common in America, but like rugby league, kind of like think almost like NFL. Like imagine like a kid who's very skinny, but wants to be good at American football.
Like a football player?
Yeah. Like it's a big limitation, obviously. Like no matter how hard you practice, no matter how hard you try, you're just not built for the sport. So that was something that always kind of like bothered me to a certain degree. I suppose that's why I went down the nutrition route. Going back to kind of having like strict parents, like I just picked a university. Like I got to choose university degrees, and they were the ones who were able to make the final call. In that, it's hard to explain, but we get like, I suppose you call it like welfare payments to a certain degree. Like if you go to study at university, you get payments from the government to kind of support you. So you don't need to work. You can work on top of it, but it's like a bare minimum to support you while you study. But your parents have to sign off on that unless you like get a divorce from your parents, so to speak, if you're under a certain age.
Very interesting.
So they got the final call because they're just like, we're not signing this piece of paper that gets you like a certain amount of money unless we make the call. So I put forward like exercise science and a few other things, maybe exercise physiology, and then nutrition was one of them. And they're just like, oh, well, if you go down that route, you're guaranteed to get a job. So we'll do that. Which is really funny in hindsight because it's really hard to get a job as a dietitian. And I don't think they knew that. Like they were just like making this up. But
yeah, it
that's
really
kind
is.
of like,
In America, it's very difficult for a dietitian to remotely get.
Yeah. Even more difficult. Like I think one of the differences between Australia and America is in America, dietitians are allowed to use testimonials, whereas in Australia, we are not. So it's probably part of why I made an Instagram presence and stuff like that, because I've got to show off my knowledge that way, because I can't actually show client results. Like I can't show before and after. Like people just have to kind of trust me based on my knowledge that I'm getting these good results, and maybe some word of mouth and like locally and stuff like that. But like I can't actually show the masses these results, which I think like creates less jobs for dietitians. But I suppose that's just how I got into it. Like I was really skinny, as I said, and like I started lifting weights, and I was like, what is going on? Why am I not gaining size? Nutrition was obviously the variable that was like missing there. And I just kind of went down that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. Like basically that's it. Like I just went down that rabbit hole. Bodybuilding.com was the first place on that rabbit hole where I was just like looking up stuff online. Like I was looking up training programs. That's where I learned about like calorie surpluses, calorie deficits, all those kind of things. I was like, okay, I just need a calorie surplus, start gaining size. That'll solve all my problems. Obviously, it's not that simple, but
it's funny that you said it's not that simple. I'm kind of the opposite, where like if I don't eat, I don't like gain anything, and it's really weird. I've never had that issue where it's just like, oh, if I eat a lot, I'm not gaining weight. It's like I eat, but I still have like lean muscle tissue on top of everything, to the point where it's like if I don't eat as much, all of a sudden I lose everything.
Yeah.
So, like consistently keep on eating. So it's interesting that you said that.
Yeah.
What was it like in school for you? Especially, let's start with grade school. How was that?
Yeah, that was fine. Like I suppose I had a very like a normal like school life and stuff like that. Like from the parents kind of aspect, like because I had, once again, strict parents, like the biggest challenge I found like social life and stuff like that was my parents would make me plan stuff 2 weeks in advance, and I wasn't allowed to hang out with people during the week. Really whack looking back on it. Like it's a weird situation, but like there'd be so many friends who like, they just wouldn't invite me to stuff just because they're like, you can't come unless it's planned like 2 weeks in advance. Like the amount of kids that would just go like to each other's houses after school, and they're like, they couldn't even hit me up on a Saturday and be like, oh, do you want to go do this now? Because my parents would be like, oh no, you've got to plan this in advance. Outside of that, though, like I was a decent student, nothing special, like not top of the class, but like slightly better than average. I didn't really hate school. I never missed days of school, like never got sick or anything like that. Like just, pretty stock standard, I'd say, outside of that one, like the social life aspect outside of school, I'd say.
Yeah. Did you think that whole 2 weeks in advance kind of like kept up with you as you were growing up? Was it something you kind of kept?
It got a little bit less, but like it definitely shaped me when I went to university, because when I went to university, I was like, oh my God, I have freedom. Like I can literally just like do what I want when I want, like kind of pushed me to obviously move out of home as soon as possible, basically. But yeah, like ever since then, I've really valued freedom in terms of like, if I have a bad day or something like that, it's like, well, I'm in control of this. Whereas like the entire childhood, it felt like stuff was like out of my control. Like in terms of I couldn't just like go and do something. Like I had to like wait to be allowed to go and do something. That's how I think about it.
That's a pretty nice way to look at it. I've actually, I had a conversation with someone, with a girl a few days ago. We were talking about like obsessive compulsive, like issue dysmorphia and like why people do certain things. And, bodybuilding was one of the things that came up, and it was more of like the controlling aspect of like one's life and like what to do and stuff like that. I wonder if that was one of the things that kind of like attracted you to being towards like a dietitian in a way, because like you never had that control growing up. When you finally did, did you ever had any problems with like eating like disorder, food wise, or anything like that?
It's an interesting question. I think pretty much every dietitian's got something along those lines.
I've noticed that.
Yeah. Like, I don't think I had anything like a lot of it usually stems from people's parents having a bit of a weird relationship with food, but my parents were pretty fine in that regard. I was very much what you'd call, I suppose, like a clean eater, borderline on orthorexia. As in, like, I remember there's a few times as a kid where, like, because like my parents are pretty health conscious, like, but I'd go to like our grandparents' house and it's like the grandparents' job to like feed you junk basically. And there'd be times I like say no to it, even though it tastes nice. Because I like in my head, I was like, if I say no to this, I'll be a better athlete. Even though like when you look back and I was like, I was super skinny and that was my issue. I probably should have just ate the food. But I was very, very much a clean eater. I suppose that kind of like reading about like if it fits your macros, like really improved my relationship with food. Like most people talk about how like counting calories and stuff like that, like created issues. Whereas for me, it was like kind of understanding, I was like, oh, I can have a little bit of sugar and that's fine. Really shaped my life really positively. But I do think I had like some like mild orthorexia to a certain degree. And even just like, there was a few things like, do you have Weet-Bix in America? Is that a thing?
What is it?
Weet-Bix?
Weet-Bix? I don't know what that is.
It's a real bland, like wheat-based cereal. Basically no sugar. It's pretty much just wheat. And like, I remember a few times like my dad would make comments like when I'd get like 6 Weet-Bix out, which is like a decent size thing. He's like, oh, if you do that, you'll gain weight. And I remember like I was like super skinny. I was like, what the hell? Like,
Dad, I need this. What are you talking about?
And like there was definitely like little comments like that like shaped my kind of relationship with food. Because that's just like a really like weird thing to say to a kid who's already super skinny. But yeah, that's probably shaped it to a certain degree and like shaped my interest in nutrition and stuff like that for sure.
I actually, not to sound like a bad brother, but I actually had a little sister who she was like maybe 2 or 3. She was like really, 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 really overweight, right around like 2, 3, 4 years old-ish. And for some reason, it was always great to like, when she was younger, it was easy to pick her up and stuff like that. Because I was like 14, 15, 16, whatever. Yeah. It was super easy to pick her up. But then she got heavier and heavier. It was just so difficult to like pick her up and kind of just like move her around because at such a young age, she was like a freaking balloon. And I was just like, I don't know if I can pick you up anymore. And like you said, with the whole parents thing, from like a brother perspective, I was always like, I guess it's not really the nicest thing to say, but I was always like, you need to like lose weight or whatever. That's the thing to say to a girl, especially.
And now that I'm a dietitian, like I realize like how heavy of an impact like a little comment like that can like have on somebody. Or like that like sticks in their mind and they're like, especially coming from family, like it's much bigger coming from family than just like a friend or an acquaintance or anything.
And then like the interesting part is like a few years down, she actually lost all the weight before she turned like 8 or whatever. I don't know how she did it, but she lost all the weight. And she went out to school somewhere and she came back. When she came back, the first thing she wanted me to do was
pick her up.
Yeah. And then she was like so excited about it. She's like, she was like, you can pick me up now. I'm just like, yeah, I can. And then she like lost the majority of the weight. That was just super interesting. But like you were saying, that was definitely one of the things that I did wrong as a brother. And it was definitely impacted her decision a lot because now she's like, she eats really healthy. She's not like super skinny. She's not like a way she works out and stuff like that. She's like 11, 12 years old, but she's in great shape and she's super tall. And I've always tried to give her like a form of like affirmation to be like, yeah, you're doing a great job. This is awesome. This way she's never like having to have any sort of like dysmorphia or disorder kind of things. That seems to be what a lot of individuals tend to have, whether it just be dietitians or whether it just be diet focused or just bodybuilding focused. Throughout your experience as a dietitian, have you encountered a lot of people with those particular issues, particularly the eating?
I think so. Yeah, like it's like particularly, I suppose, like the more money I'm charging, because as I'm booked out, I'm charging more money and stuff like that. The more I'm attracting that kind of person. Like, who are the people who care about nutrition to that point that they're willing to pay this kind of money, invest this kind of money into the process? Like, I try to avoid working with anyone who's got like a full-blown eating disorder, like, because there are eating disorders dietitians. I refer on to them when relevant, but like I definitely attract a lot of people who have got like some form of like disordered eating habit, or like they're the ones who are always looking for some kind of answers, and they've seen like multiple professionals before seeing me. They're probably investing money, like if they're into powerlifting, unrelated to this, but like if they're into powerlifting, they're investing money into a coach already, and then they're investing money into me. and they're spending all this money on other aspects related to their health, related to their fitness, everything they're looking to achieve. But yeah, heaps of people, even just like athletes and stuff like that. A lot of athletes have like, there's a reason they're at the top level. Like there's some kind of mindset thing that's like driving them to try and do something that's pretty abnormal, basically.
Yeah, I'm actually finding out in myself. Fun fact, I've competed quite a few times, but I've never like truly kind of like give it the effort that it deserved. So now, I mean, I feel like I shouldn't say this, but most of my competitions I've kind of just like screwed around with and kind of just like, because I knew I can get away with it because I have such a fast metabolism. But this year, I kind of realized, okay, dude, listen, you can't be doing this shit anymore because if you do this, you're not going to win. So it definitely takes you out of that normal mindset of just always trying to keep things balanced. And it puts you towards a more obsessive pattern where you just like, you have to follow this. You have to make sure everything is not really 100% on point in terms of macronutrients, but at least like keep it close by so that way you're kind of where you need to be. Because at the end of the day, it's all consistency. The more consistent you are with your diet, and then the longer you do it, the more results it would show up. But I'm finding myself going a little bit more to that abnormality of eating and training, and it's a really weird feeling.
And I think you kind of like have to a certain degree. Like most people are like bodybuilding like are down that end of the section, like particularly during prep, like towards the end of the prep, like you kind of need some form of like disordered eating habits or anything like that to do well. Like even the fact that like if you're getting that lean, you probably like, I don't know if you're an exception, but pretty much everybody getting that lean is starving towards the end of the prep. Like they're really, really, really hungry, and you've got to like ignore that. And it takes a lot of willpower to ignore that in comparison to what the average person has towards food. Basically, it takes a lot of effort to do that.
Yeah, and then that was actually one of my issues that I had last year. I was doing ridiculously good, kind of following everything around, but then it got to like the last 4 to 5 weeks. Oh man, binge eating is a thing. It's like, it's ridiculous.
It's not talked about a lot, but like I can't remember where I saw a study, but there was a study on like 20 competitors. I can't remember which category they were in, but it was some form of bodybuilding, and every single one of them binge ate at some stage in their prep. And like very few of them told their coach. It was only like after the fact, after the show was over, they're like, okay, yeah, I did this. But like the coach is probably sitting there being like, you're on these calories, these macros. Why are you not getting lean?
Why you're not getting leaned out? Like what's going on there? And you're just like, and then what they do is like they make up for it by doing more cardio. And like more weight training just to burn the excess calories that they already ate. I'm not saying I did it, but I might have done it.
My friend,
just from a friend, told me he binged ate, and then after that, he like did a lot of cardio. I was like, what a dick. Listen to you. But so you said you played some sports in school. You're very tall, so I'm assuming genetically you were kind of like, I guess, attracted to basketball.
Yeah, basketball, but like I'm only 6 foot tall, so like even like I play like local comps and stuff like that now, and like I'm not a tall guy, like I'm still a guard like in local comps, like it's tall for the average person, but it's like nothing. Like as you probably know, like in NBA, like average height's like 6'7", like a small forward's like 6'7".
Yeah, they're fucking freaks.
Yeah, so it's nothing special, and even like. It's weird given like that I'm so into nutrition, so into lifting and all these kind of things, but like athletically, I'm also nothing special. Like genetics, being white, all these things, like they're factors, but like, like my main thing is that I shoot threes. Like that's one of the things, like I don't think there's many things that like I'm like naturally very, very good at, but like shooting just is one of those things. Like it just like, there's one of those things that's like, I could practice as much as like 30 other people and I'd say I'd be like the best at it. It's just one of those things that's just like a natural thing. Like in terms of last competitions, like last time I took basketball really seriously, it was like over 40% shooting from three, like throughout the season, which is like, that's like up there. Like I know there's better defense and stuff like that, but that's like NBA kind of level shooting 3-pointers. It's just like, I'd be a liability on defense at like a really high level basically. But that's what drew me to basketball, because it's just like something that like I've got a natural like ability for, like outside of like the athleticism and stuff like that. There's something there that like, it's just naturally easier to do, I guess, for sure.
Yeah. I tend to, I asked that question about being genetically attracted to basketball, because from what I've seen from people is that if they have a certain like genetic disposition, which makes them a little bit more than the average, or at least slightly average, they tend to be attracted to certain things. Like, let's say for swimmers, for example, a lot of swimmers tend to be really tall because they have that long wingspan to be able to like kind of like and then get that really long reach. Someone who's tall tends to be a little bit more into basketball, or for a female aspect, volleyball. Maybe I'm just stereotyping, but there definitely is some sort of like, in terms of sports itself, I think genetically people are attracted to something that they know they'll be good at.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I also think it goes the other way, like in terms of the classic example that comes to mind. Like, I think people are like also attracted to like obsessing about things that they're not necessarily good at.
Yes.
So what I mean by that is like the example I've heard in relation to basketball is like people ask Michael Jordan how he got so good at jumping. And he's like, oh, I used to ride my bike around as a kid. Like, it was just like that simple for him. Whereas, like, if you ask, like, Luke Walton or, like, some, like, white guy, like, they're like, what did you do to improve your vertical? And they, like, start talking about, like, plyometrics, and they, like, go into the details and stuff like that. It's probably also why I think some of, like, the great coaches in sport, they might have made the top level, but they were never, like, well, not never, but it's very, very rare for them to be, like, those elite, like, gifted athletes.
Gifted individuals.
Yeah, because they've got to spend more time thinking about how to like just get on the court, basically, versus like being one of the best. Like, yeah,
that actually makes a lot of sense in terms of not just in terms of sports as well, and also bodybuilding. It's like you do have guys who know a lot more about nutrition, know a lot more about training, but yet they don't have that genetic gift to be able to be those particular top level athletes, which I've always just found so interesting. This is why, like, when I was younger, I used to like knock around people like, oh, you know all this stuff. I'm gonna name some, but Ian McCarthy, for example.
Yeah, he comes to my mind as well.
It's like he like knew all his stuff, but he was like never like growing, and he was just like same. Yeah. But he like knew what he was doing in terms of like being able to give out the advice to people and make them get results. And I've always just wondered, it's like, too much thinking. Just do.
I definitely think with lifting, there is a lot of genetics involved and stuff like that. Like, I honestly think this is a large part of why I went down the road of becoming a dietitian. Like, if like I gained muscle really, really easily and just stayed lean throughout the process and stuff like that, am I going to spend time thinking about like all these minor details? No, I'm just going to, exactly as you said, just do it. If it's simple and it's easy. But yeah, that's why I spent this time on bodybuilding.com. How I said, like, I started like lifting and I wasn't gaining size. If I just stepped into a gym and everything worked perfectly and I gained size and got exactly the results I wanted to, I never would have looked on bodybuilding.com because I'd be like, what's the point? Like, I'm already making progress.
It's kind of funny. We're like the opposite of like the polar ends. I'm kind of that guy who just like, I was on bodybuilding, like, I'm just going to go work out. Go like that. But yeah, that's so interesting. What was your least favorite sport? If you can think of one.
Least favorite sport? It's a good question. Probably the like one I was worst at was cricket.
That's an Australian sport.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry, I'm trying to play an Australian accent.
It's
not going so
well. Reason, like, one of the factors, like, firstly, skinny, it's hard to hold a bat and like swing it really hard when you're really skinny. But the other thing was like, I'm red-green colorblind, and I didn't know it at the time. And I just remember there's like one day, like, because when you're in junior cricket, there's it's not like a regular cricket kind of pitch. It's like dark green AstroTurf, which is the dark green that really sets off my red-green colorblind, and it's a dark red ball, which is the dark red that sets off my red-green colorblind as well. And it was just like one day, I just remember I just like could not see the ball. Like, it was just like coming at me, but like I don't know if you know much about colorblindness, but like, it just like blends in. Like, it's not like it just like blends in so that the dark red ball looks dark green as it's coming at you, kind of.
So you can't really see it when it's coming at you.
Yeah, and like sometimes it's not really an issue, but like that like definitely during cricket, like, it was definitely an issue. And I was just like, why am I not picking this up? Like, I played for like 3 seasons. And I was just like, I just wasn't getting that much better. And like, it was only like after the fact that I realized how big of an issue it actually was. And like, there's even times like I'd be like bowling in my backyard and there's like dark green grass behind the wicket. And it's just like me by myself. And I'm like, the ball would land in there. And like, I'd spend ages searching for the ball. And like, my dad would be like, dude, it is right here. You're looking at it. It's like, I can't see it.
That's funny you mentioned that. That's actually something that's one of the things I probably never would have thought you had, but it's also something that's very
it's very common.
From to be like, hey, you're kind of.
Yeah. And it doesn't affect life. It does not affect life outside of very, very rare things. Like we've got like I don't know if you've got P plates or anything. Do you have P plates in America where it's like when you're a learner, when you're driving?
Yeah, we do. We have like drivers learning or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So we have like, you spend like a year or like 2 years, I don't know how long on P plates, and there's like red ones and green P plates. From a distance, I can't see the difference between those colors. But those are like the only two things that come to mind that's affected my life. Like that's literally it. So I don't even notice it basically.
Well, the good thing is you're more successful without them. So forget those things. So it doesn't seem like it mattered that much. But definitely always good to kind of like know where your weaknesses are and your strengths are and kind of like exploit them for what they are. It's always a good thing. Another question I have is, trying to think of something. So aside from just, I know that you're the kind of guy who probably like reads all these like new articles that come out, especially if it's like coming from Alan Aragon.
Oh yeah.
Something like that. You're kind of like looking up like the new information, which is good when you're usually like a personal trainer, a bodybuilder, like a dietitian. You always have to kind of stay up to date to the current articles and research that are coming out, so you can kind of like keep yourself a little bit a step above everything else. But if you're not doing any of that, what else would you be doing? Like, let's say playing video games, going outside with friends, hanging out and stuff like that. What do you like to do aside from?
A few things. Like, so I've got a girlfriend, so I spend time with her. I read a little bit, not as much as I used to. I used to be really, really into reading. Once again, from the money.
What was your favorite genre?
Business stuff, investing stuff. It sounds so lame to say, but like, yeah, just coming from that kind of money standpoint, like that, really kind of drove me. Like I used to have a goal of being a millionaire before 30. I've kind of changed my tune on that. But yeah, so like I went down that route.
It's a bit of
heaps about
crazy road.
Yeah, like I was working very hard towards that route, and then like I was working for a company I didn't really like working for towards the end. It was good at the start, but I was working a lot of hours, and then like towards the end, I was like, nah, this is bullshit. I ain't. I'm not gonna.
Yeah, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, and it made me decide like I'd rather like kind of do what I'm doing now, like see clients I want to see, leave a bit of money on the table. If there's someone I don't want to see, I'm not going to see them. Like the money's not everything, like those kind of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So like reading a little bit, I like investing. So spending time reading up about that. But gaming, so like I've only just started getting a little bit back into gaming. So I didn't have a console or anything for like 6 years, like partly due to that money aspect. Cause I was just like, no, I'm not going to spend like $400 or whatever it costs to buy an Xbox or a PlayStation.
I don't blame you. It's really pointless.
Yeah, and then like particularly because I was working so much, I was like it's just going to cut into my work time. But like I got one relatively recently because I got really cheap, and COD. I'm assuming like Warzone, like everyone plays Warzone. Like I played like a little bit of that, and I play Apex now, which is like kind of similar to Apex Legends. But like that's probably like 4 hours a week or something like that I spend on that. Basketball, lifting takes up a lot of time. Like I'm a powerlifter, so that's like almost 10 hours per week.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's pretty hectic. Like each session's like 2 hours, and like if you do a lot of warm up stuff, like
which makes sense.
Yeah. So like even if you think about it, if you do a 40-hour work week and then you do 10 hours of powerlifting, like that's 50 hours still gone. Like if you do a 50-hour work week, that's 60 hours gone. Like it's really heavy.
On top of it, it's crazy. I never really like particularly think about it that way. I would say when I go to the gym, I roughly spend like maybe like 45 to 60 minutes, maybe like an hour and a half. Add that up in like 4 to 5 days. It's roughly about 8 to 9 hours, which is a lot of time to spend.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And like we have some like, because at Valhalla Strength, the gym I'm at, where there's some pretty high level powerlifters. And like, I remember when I first joined here, like there'd be times I'd spend like 1.5, maybe 2 hours in the gym. And there's this big guy who totals 1,000 kilos, so 2,200 pounds or whatever that is. And like, he wouldn't even be done squats by the time I was walking out of the gym. Like his warm-up routine would be like 30 minutes to an hour, probably like close to an hour, a bit of socializing in there as well. And just so long resting between sets. Like, yeah, it's insane. Some people take so long.
That's one of the reasons why I can't really like do powerlifting. I like that, like, go intensity with body and hypertrophy based training. For me to just like lift heavy and then just be like, all right, I'm gonna rest for about 10 minutes. I'm just like, that's not happening, because the pump just goes away. It's just like you don't feel the pump anymore. You're just like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, it's completely different for sure. Yeah, I agree. I probably prefer the bodybuilding style training, but like I'm just drawn to the numbers. Like I'm drawn to the numbers of powerlifting. Like it's one of the best feelings in the world in terms of like, if I hit a personal best, like I feel like I've worked so hard for it. It's just the best feeling in the world. Whereas like with bodybuilding, like I don't even notice if I get bigger or smaller. Like and if it happens, like, cause obviously over the years I've seen a change in physique, like I just don't feel anything. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But there's no like immediate, like instant gratification like there is the moment you hit a personal best.
Yeah, that's completely true. That might also be something I've also been wondering about as well. If there's because I think so I do understand that the idea of lactic acid building up is a natural occurrence for everyone, but I've always wondered if like some people produced a lot more lactic acid than like other individuals. Because for me, I always get a pump.
Yeah.
But it's never like a moment where like I'm training, all of a sudden I don't like feel a pump. Like every time I go to the gym, it's like the pump is there. But then there are other people who are just like, yeah, man, I only get a pump when I like do this and this, so and so, I eat this. I'm just like, really?
Yeah, I'm sure there's differences, and like I don't want to go like a full mind muscle connection here, but like I think that is a difference. Like there's definitely times like I go long periods of time without getting a pump, but that's just due to the nature of the training. In terms of like if I'm doing like a set of 5 or something like that, it's like all I'm focused on is moving the weight. I'm not really focusing on like making sure the right muscles are doing the job and stuff like that. But yeah, there's definitely a whole bunch of factors going on there for sure. And I do think people do have different like lactic acid productions as well for sure. But like I haven't seen the evidence on that, but like even on like one of my most recent Instagram posts, like somebody was talking about that. So I'm pretty sure it's a thing.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Yeah, I've always just wondered, because ever since I was little, like it was like instant pump, and that's kind of why I picked it up, because I was like, oh, this feels good. Instagram.
Yeah, it feels good. Yeah.
Yeah. So here we go. Yeah. Let's do it again tomorrow. Kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's so funny. So I think we kind of covered a few. What I'd like to know is like, I think we might have already discussed it, but what kind of gravitated you towards being a dietitian?
Yeah, so it was basically, it was partly like, once I said, like, it was really just that interest in nutrition. Like I was spending all my time reading about nutrition in like my final year of high school. I was spending all my time reading about nutrition in my spare time. So it's like, it kind of makes sense to study this, go down this rabbit hole. Going back to bodybuilding.com, like I was seeing a few people, like Alan Aragon was one of the people that came to mind. I think Eric Helms, Lane Norton, and a few other people. Like I was just being like,
Alberta, so there.
Yeah. And at the time I was seeing people like that and I was like, okay, they seem pretty intelligent. Like it's a bit more than just bro science. Like there is like a lot to know. There is a lot you can learn about this. So I was really interested in that side of things. I like helping people, but I don't think I was ever necessarily drawn to I want to help other people improve their diets or anything like that. And even now I love doing that, but like even now, like the kind of behavior change component of that, like triggers me a little bit. Like it is a bit annoying because like it's kind of like you lay out a perfect plan and people just don't always necessarily do it. So it's like half your time spent trying to get people to do that. But yeah, I think I just went down that route. I just wanted to help people. And the other thing is I didn't care about money at the time. So like never a thought crossed my mind being like, hey, I should choose a profession where I'm going to earn good money. Like I never thought like, because I remember in my first year of university, someone's like, dude, you know, pharmacists can make like well over 100K as a new grad if they go to a rural area. And he's like, I've been looking up and seeing what dietitians earn and they make like 50K as new grads. I think we're in the wrong degree. And when he said that to me, I was like, oh my God, he has a point. But before that, it was just like, I was like, oh, I'm interested in nutrition. Let's do what I'm interested in. So that was how I thought about it at the time, basically. Yeah.
That's
and I also, the last thing as well, I didn't know it is a female dominated profession. So in Australia, there's probably like 3 to 5% of dietitians are male. And like, I just rocked up to my first couple of classes and I was like, I am like the only dude in here. Like I had no idea. Like I was just like, I like nutrition. I'll go study that. Just didn't even think about it.
I think I can kind of see that from if we talk about like I would say both genders have issues with like food,
But
and
females are more likely
but
to.
females are more like widely in tune with that they would seek
yeah.
out like dietitian or anything like that more than males would.
And how he said, like, most people who are drawn to nutrition, there's a reason. Like, most of them have like some form of disordered eating, or there's something going on. Otherwise, you wouldn't like dedicate your life to studying a topic.
Yeah, it's like it has to be something that happened in your life as a trigger, and you want to grow up and either help people, or you see someone suffers, or you were like overweight or underweight, and eventually, gradually, you kind of like were like, you know what, I want to do this because I want to change lives, and I want to do this here and there. So that's definitely. I didn't really. How did you mention it? I'm kind of like thinking about it. I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, there's not a lot of dudes that are a dietitian.
Yeah, it's rare. It's rare. Like I had no idea before doing it. Like I didn't try to go against the grain or anything like that. I was just like, that's what I want to do. I'm going to go do that. And then I rocked up. I was like, yeah, this is a bit weird. This is weird that guys don't do this, but it makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah, when you think about it that way, it kind of makes sense. It's like how like in most like hospitals, you will see more female-centric individuals in there versus because they more cater towards the caring aspect of taking care of people, and they either have like issues where like a family of them happen and have like a more emotional response to it. Not saying all females are nurses, but majority of them can be nurses if there's a little bit of male joining in here and there. But that's just going to a whole bunch of nuances.
Yeah.
It's just like it's just something I've always just like I think about a lot of things about like why certain things are happening here and there, and that's definitely one of the things that just popped into my head today. So, there you go. Hold on. Oh, jeez. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. So I kind of enjoy this. I kind of got a little bit of like who you are and interesting stuff about yourself. Going forward, let's say if you were to like give an advice to like the viewers and whatnot, what would you give them as an advice that you think would be very helpful? Whether it's just or anything else, something that you've always thought about.
Yeah, I suppose like the first thing that's popped into my mind, just due to the situation I've been through, like in terms of thinking about how like I valued money really highly and like kind of chase that kind of like, I'm a very, very easy person to make happy. Like kind of how I said, I really value freedom. I didn't have much freedom as a child because I'll always be happy. I put myself in a work position where like I wasn't necessarily enjoying work. Like 2 years out into being a dietitian, like I was doing a lot of hours for a company that's values I didn't really support towards the end of it. And I think the best decision I ever made was kind of just leaving that company without any direction to go into. Like it was at the point where I was like, yeah, no, I'd rather work at Subway than work here kind of thing. And like, probably shouldn't have let it get to that point. Like, and then I went just down the route that I actually wanted to do, not knowing that it was going to lead to money. It turned out to be great from that perspective, but it was never that. Like, it's really cliche, like, I don't know, like chase your dreams, like actually do what you want to do. Even if it's at the point where like you are doing something full time, but you're doing what you actually want to do on the side. So you've actually got a little bit of passion for something that hopefully leads to an income. Like just, I don't know, just follow your passion to a certain degree, but also at the other end of the spectrum, remember that there's more to life. Like work probably shouldn't be your life. Like there should be other things in your life that you're valuing more highly. You shouldn't be thinking about work all the time when you're going to sleep and all those kind of things as well. Is probably my advice.
I actually caught you saying that earlier, and I wanted to share something. I went through the exact same situation where I was working at a job where like I was making a good amount of money, but the work life itself was just so horrendous that I just didn't really find myself enjoying being there. And right before COVID happened, I was just like, hey, I've been here. I asked for a few days off, but I work these like inconsistent schedules, and it's just, I can't really do anything, can't go out, can't have a life, can't do whatever I want. So I decided to kind of just get up and just be like, you know what, I'm gonna quit. Yeah. So I quit, and I quit at the worst possible time, because when that happened, COVID was going on and things were just locking down and there wasn't anything to do. But I made sure to save up a lot of money before. So I stayed there like a month or two saving up so I can pay my rent and everything else moving forward. And eventually I kind of got to the point where I was like panicking. So that wasn't really a good idea to quit your work when like there's a pandemic going on, man. I know, but I kind of just like stuck it out. And I loved being a personal trainer more than working for a corporation and managing a business and then supervising a whole bunch of people, because people themselves are very difficult to deal with when you're in a management position. But it was just a sign of relief to just like leave and then kind of just chase what I want, because now I can sleep. Now if I want to go out and do stuff, I can.
Yeah.
Now if I want to like hang out with friends or do whatever it is I need to do, I can do all that. Before I wasn't able to. So it's a bit of a freedom kind of feeling, because I've been working for like so many years doing like multiple jobs back and forth, and I was never like happy with what I was doing. But now I'm just like, I'm 26 and it's not about the money, guys.
Yeah.
It really isn't. It's just about like being able to do the things that you love and enjoying your life. I mean, someone can make like millions of dollars and they're probably not happy. So,
yeah, I agree.
There's that, because it takes a lot of effort that goes into making a lot of money. The most I've ever tried to do is try to like make a goal to make like $5,000 in a month.
Yeah.
It worked, but holy shit.
Grind.
Yeah, the grind. It just wasn't worth it. But,
yeah.
Yeah, man. Awesome. That was pretty good. I'm going to post this up as soon as I get the chance, but this was pretty nice and it was a good one. So thank you for that.
Awesome. Thank you for having me on.
Yep.